Today's story is called Gray Hair and Old Age. Author Hao Lijun. On the 13th day of the 10th lunar month. It was a temple fair in Shiguanying village, Yongnian County. Song Yinglian finished her meal early in the morning. She was ready to go to the market to buy vegetables. Song Yinglian's mother was burning incense and praying in front of the offering table. Song Yinglian went up to her to say goodbye to her mother. The mother looks back at her daughter. She looks serious. She seems to have something on her mind. She patted her shoulder. "I dreamt of your grandma last night. Let's talk about it when I get back. The market will be crowded. It'll be too crowded to walk." So Song Yinglian turned around and left. He heard his mother shouting behind him, "Don't let good deeds go unpunished." Song Yinglian answered. She went out with her cart. She went out in the cold wind. The wind was blowing. The coldness is piercing the bones. Song Yinglian was wrapped in a heavy down jacket, braving a temperature of -5 degrees. Into a long, deep, cold and isolated hutong. A long, deep, cold and isolated alley. On the west side of the alley is a dilapidated, unoccupied compound. The walls are broken and cypress. It has been deserted for many years. Every time she passes by here, Song Yinglian felt fear. She can't help but speed up her pace. She stepped on the dead leaves and hurried through. After passing through the alley, Song Yinglian arrived at the edge of the bustling marketplace. His eyes swept towards the entrance of the market. Suddenly, an old woman's figure caught his eye. The figure of the old woman was withered and thin. Her clothes were old. On her wrinkled and haggard face, a pair of dull eyes showed the sadness of the vicissitudes of time. Her disheveled white hair was blown by the cold wind. It was as weak and helpless as withered grass. Song Yinglian's heart felt a sense of pity. Inexplicable tears welled up in a flash. Song Yinglian realized that she had lost her temper. He quickly calmed his mind. He just wanted to buy the white-haired old lady vegetables. But then he had a second thought. Decided to go into the market for a while. It's not too late to buy them when he comes out. Anyway, the old woman was at the edge of the market. So Song Yinglian pushed his cart deeper into the market. After some selection, she bought a cart full of fruits and vegetables. As she walked out of the market, his eyes suddenly fell on the gray-haired old woman. Then he remembered that he was going to buy his vegetables. Now the cart was full of fruits and vegetables. There was no room for anything else. The gray-haired old woman was waiting in front of the stall. Her helpless gaze sweeps over the passing crowds, on everyone who passes by in a hurry. Her eyes are full of begging and the fear of being rejected. This gaze fell into Song Yinglian's eyes. It made her heart ache. She walked slowly and hesitantly. Her eyes swept over the old woman's vegetable stall. There were several pumpkins of different shapes and sizes. Pumpkins of different sizes. It was obvious that they were homegrown. He was tormented by an inexplicable sense of shame. He walked with great difficulty into a remote alley. He saw that he'd reach home after crossing the deep alley. The old woman behind him might have to wait all day in the cold wind to sell her pumpkin. Thinking about it, he stopped. He stood still in the alley. Suddenly, a strange middle-aged woman walked up to him. She looked like she was also coming to the market to buy vegetables. Song Yinglian quickly stopped her. He took out some vegetables from the cart and gave them to her. "I want to go back and buy some other vegetables. It won't fit in the cart. I'll give you some." The courtesan was flattered. She took the vegetables and put them in the basket. She thanked her profusely and left. She went back to the market. She went to the old lady's stall. She bought all the pumpkins from the old lady. The old woman's kind face blossomed into a smile. It warmed Song Yinglian's heart. After paying the money, Song Yinglian was just about to push the cart home, only to hear a loud bang. The wall in that remote hutong collapsed. People in the marketplace let out a scream of terror. Song Yinglian broke out in a cold sweat. If she hadn't returned to buy the old lady's vegetables, she would have been buried under the collapsed wall. She would have been buried under the collapsed wall. He hurriedly pushed the cart to the crowded alleyway. His ears were filled with the chatter of the crowd. Song Yinglian returned home in fear. He told his mother what had just happened, and described in detail the appearance of the gray-haired old woman. Mother burst into tears. She murmured that she looked a lot like your grandma. Maybe your grandma's spirit has blessed you. Maybe it's your kindness that has blessed you. Song Yinglian looked into her mother's tearful eyes. She really found the resemblance between her mother and the old woman. Her mind was reeling. She immediately rushed out of the house. She took a detour to the edge of the market, only to see the old woman's stall had long disappeared. Song Yinglian asked the vendors next to her. They all shook their heads and denied having seen the old woman. He walked home slowly. He went to his family's table, looking at the smoke from his mother's incense. The floodgates of his memory suddenly opened. He remembered when he was 2 or 3 years old. Grandma's sales figure walking down the street. On his grandmother's wrinkled face, a pair of kind eyes were looking at him with a smile. As a child, Song Yinglian had 2 pigtails on her head. She was walking on her toddler's feet. She screamed and jumped at her grandma, opening her arms wide. Listeners, that's all for now. Thank you for your time.